Perfect. If you guys wouldn't mind, could you give me just a quick background on yourselves and then like your background with lacrosse as a whole?
Yeah, you wanna go?
You can go ahead.
All right. So I played lacrosse since I was a kid. Played D3 at Juniata College. Not quite as high level as Salisbury, but still loved it there. Now I'm just here as a GA, helping out with men's lacrosse, helping Matt and I out with men's lacrosse, and looking to get into it as a career as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm in my 21st year here as the director of strength and conditioning, sports performance for Salisbury University. Kind of got involved with lacrosse here at Salisbury, being able to work with both our men's and women's team. I had the opportunity to work with, I think, 13, 12 national championship teams, or 13 national championship teams since I've been here. And then most recently being able hired as the U.S. national team strength coach for both our box and Olympic sixes team. So I've been with them now for 2 years.
Awesome. Awesome. I mean, how, because that's always makes me think like when you train for box, when you train for field, when you train for sixes, do you feel like there's a big difference between what conditioning needs that they have? Because I was talking with Nicole the other day and she was like, when you train for box, that's not what you need for field. When you train for field, that's not what you need for box. But like, what's been your
Yeah, they're
kind of
not
thought
even
process?
close. I mean, it's and a lot of it has to do when you look at like you think of the game of like box and sixes as being relatively similar, but it's the length of the field is what changes it.
Yeah.
Where you can't get guys off the field fast enough. Where like in indoor, like you have that ability, you have that zone where you can work in, where you can slide down to be able to step on, where you don't have that in sixes. So like in a wide field, and much longer field, you can really only substitute short side, that side of the field,
Mhm.
right? Very quickly on the transition back from offense to defense if you need to. But most of it you're subbing only when you're moving to offense. And so you got guys that are going to have to stay out there, roughly like a minute, but it's a high intensity minute, and they're 1-to-1 work rest ratios. So you're on for that time, and then you're generally off for the same amount of time, and you're gonna do that for 8 consecutive minutes.
Yeah.
And so it's intense. I mean, you're jacked up heart rate wise, is you know. So and then when you talk about field, like there's a lot of standing around,
Sure.
compared to, and then with your box, it's quick transitions on and off, right? So you just have your offensive guys and you've got your transitional guys. So you only have a handful of guys, a couple guys out there that are your transitional guys who got to get up and down the field and then off, where you have your the rest of your offense and then the rest of your defense guys. But you can do that because it's condensed.
No, that makes
Um,
sense. And then like when you're thinking about like the conditioning needs or like however you want to phrase it for the box, let's say, versus the field, what would you say is like either good metrics, conditioning tests, things like that for a box player versus like a field player? Because obviously, like you just said, the demands are very different from the two.
well, I mean, I think I look at it like a little bit differently. Optimally,
Okay.
you want to. It's not like a specific number, right? Specific test. Ultimately, you want to have like the highest VO2 max possible, right? But at the same time, you want to have the highest sprint velocity possible,
Mhm.
right? You want to have the fastest acceleration possible. So we can't go out and be a long distance cross country runner and expect, where we have a high VO2 max, and then still expect to have a super fast, 10 or 25 or getting up into that 22 mile per hour range, like not being able to see that. Um, so ultimately, I think you want that. You want to have kids, guys that can accelerate exceptionally well,
Mhm.
in a 10. You want guys that can reach top speeds, and you want guys that can be highly fit. So it's okay, how do we create all three of those? That becomes the plan of attack at that point. And then how do you change direction? I think
Yeah.
that's a critical piece too. We're testing wise, looking at 5-10-5 pro agility. How fast can we get in and out of that? We can take a 505 as well.
Okay.
Look at your change of direction deficits with your 10. So you can see your accelerative ability, see how well you change direction, see what move. So I think more so it's just kind of, hey, these are the key factors. Where do you currently assess, and how do we then get you better out of that, knowing that those are key metrics that we need to see.
Okay.
At the end of the day, though, it's playing the game, right? I mean, you can have guys that can be super fast, super fit, but don't read the game very well, and they're not going to be really good players. And I think with me working here at this level and then being able to work at the national team level, those are some of the differences. Like, yeah, you have everybody is fast, explosive, and very highly conditioned, but
Mhm.
their ability to read the game and then implement that game is so much faster, so much quicker. I think those are the big things that I've noticed the most. Um, and so even in that, like when we talk about like conditioning and so forth, like how can we incorporate that into more game concepts, right? Small-sided games, I think are a critical piece from a conditioning standpoint is how do we push that envelope? How do we still then have decision-making process? Now we can't do it with sticks because that would be an NCAA
Yeah.
violation, but we can play more small ball, handball type of thing, type of games that are going to push the envelope of what sixes is. I mean, we're roughly playing the same size fields, but working, getting up and down the field. You know, you're playing 6 minute games, and so we're pushing the envelope, getting up and down. So instead of going out and running, I don't know, 300 shuttles or whatever it may be, like it's not going to benefit us much because yeah, we're getting the physiological element,
Mhm.
but we're not getting anything related to change of direction that much. We're not getting anything to decision making, how we play the game, even on the small sided, work with how are we moving the ball around, communication. So there's a lot more I think you can gain out of those things and um, than just running your traditional stuff.
No, I love that too. And then in seeing and some of the stuff that I've seen programmed from like
Mhm.
Eric Guthrie with his women's lacrosse team, I know Scott Leach does something similar with his football team to a certain degree too, is like creating those like open chain, reactive, trying to figure out and communicate on the spot, um, has a lot of value to it. I just know like, especially working with high school athletes, they're always like, what do I got to do to run to make the Salisbury like run test, or I got to do to the whatever. So that's always like the first thing that comes to their mind. But I do love the thought process of like, hey, we got to create some open play because the game in itself requires communication. The game in itself requires decision making. The game in itself requires you to actually be able to think on your own. So I think that's a really good word right there too.
Well, the other thing I think is like a lot of like the technical stuff, right? That we're working on, like our wall ball throwing, catching. Obviously, that's a critical piece,
Yeah,
but like, how do you do it when you're fatigued, you're under stress, you've got, that, and then the decision making of making that pass, or not even the decision making that pass, like trying something that's a little bit more difficult.
yeah,
But you can do that when you're fresh because your decision making processes are solid. But when you have that level of fatigue that comes in, so I think there just is a lot more that can benefit from it. But it just can't be one of those things that's like just it has no meaning, right? We're just going out
yeah.
doing it, or it's sloppy, it doesn't do anything. There's no progressive. Again, that's not what we don't do that all year long, right? We phase into that
Mhm.
as we progress through their semester into the winter training here when they get back. Will be a lot of those types of things because it that has a greater importance at this time of the year than working on running mechanics or anything like
Yeah.
that. I mean, we do very little of those to begin with, just because the game is so reactive and you have a stick in your hand. And most of the time, I mean, if you're running with a stick in one hand, like you probably just got beat, right? So where you're
Mhm.
using arm mechanics, like okay, let's just not get beat. Let's not get beat that bad where we need that to happen. Um, or we're not transitioning on and off the field very well where I've got to now make this, 10-yard catch up. Okay, you do it once every maybe 2 or 3 games. Like our mechanics to me aren't that big of a deal because of the stick. So it's not worth in terms of my end and what I get time to work with them on, it's not worth it. I'd rather see like angular reaccelerations off your decels. Like, are we sitting low enough? Are we creating positive shin angles? Are our feet open enough to allow us to move in various ranges, or are we closing our feet off and restricting our exit ranges when we come out? I'd rather see those things be, from a technical standpoint,
Mhm.
be better, creating right angles, accelerative angles when we need to reaccelerate. Um, but then doing that off of a split dodge, right? So taking it and progressing it to where we're doing that band resisted on a split dodge or an inside roll, or some of the basic movement patterns that we may see, some hitch steps, little side shuffles, reaccelerations, and when is that load picking up? Can we get faster in those things? Can we be great at the simple things? Like again, like if you can split dodge for us, right? If we can get stick head free and beat that defender by a half step, like we've got the opportunity to shoot. And you
Yeah.
put high level skill players in there who can shoot with accuracy, like that's a game changer. And then at the same time, we need to do it on the opposite end. So as much as we'll run a split dodge forward, we'll run it backwards on defense. And that's across the board, right? So our offensive guys will have to play defense. They may get stuck on. It is what it is. Now, when you get into like Olympic sixes and stuff like that, you are playing defense. I
Mhm.
think that's the biggest, like these guys are struggling the most because they've never really, most, I'd say 98% of our guys, we might have like two guys that actually play like D mid.
Yeah.
They've never played defense before. And these guys are, 4 year college, 2 or 3 year pro. Now the guys who play box, like
Yeah.
they get it more than the non-box guys, but those guys who just play field, it's an eye opener for them.
And
No,
the
for
D
sure.
middies that are on the sixes team are only on there because they're the unicorns that have the stick skill to keep up with the actual offensive guys. So
Yeah. And there's not many of them.
no,
Like a Terafenko, yeah, he's
You guys got to go up to St. Catharines and start pulling in some of those box guys then. Go back up to
yeah.
Ontario.
yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
I had a teammate from north of Buffalo. He would play. He played a lot of box up there, and he had some of the craziest, just like small spaced, quick hands that I've ever seen in somebody.
No, that's
Yeah.
that's great. I mean, that's the
And that,
big thing too with like box. I'm imagining it's something you probably have a better idea, but imagining it's also similar to sixes. Like the biggest thing, in my opinion, wouldn't be like that top end speed or anything like that. It's more of that change of direction. Can you create that separation? Because like you said, you get a few steps, maybe even one step, you can get a shot off, a cleaner shot, and there you go. That's kind of what you
yeah.
need.
It's that working like the 3 man game, the 2 man game, like becomes very basketball driven,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? Concepts and learning how to move off of guys, work that 3 man, 2 man sides. Um, yeah, I mean, those first like 2, 3 steps, like that's it, right? I mean, that's it for defense. That's it. Like if I can beat you and I got a half step on you, odds are like the likelihood that somebody's got to have to come slide and there's an easy pass for a
Yeah.
simple dunk. Like again, that's what we're looking for as our coaching staff talks about is we're looking for easy dunks, right? I mean,
Yeah.
simple goals one-on-one with the goalkeeper, we'll take that 100% of the time. But it obviously doesn't happen. And so like how well can you defend? How well can you move laterally, right? So obviously the defensive game is way more lateral than
Mhm.
the offensive game. And so can you move, be in a defensive position, feet wider than knees wider than hip, being able to move, accelerate, read the hips on the opposite guy, um, anticipate, right? And I think all that has to do with being in it more,
Sure.
right? Like you can go out and change the direction all you want, but the competition that we would have going at that, he's going to learn a lot more from a defensive standpoint if I'm the offensive guy just by having that competition, right? And it's a simple
Yeah.
one-on-one to a cone. Don't let me get there. Um, right? Like, I mean, as simple as that activity may be, like, yes, you can push, right? You may give him a dowel or no dowel, and he can just hand touch. Um, but then yeah, like my job is can I beat him? Can I fake him left, inside roll on him, get a competitive advantage to knock that cone over? Right. Again, you look at most of the sport, you're only going to move one, maybe 2 times, right? In terms of like an attacking play. Like I'm going to have like one attack, either it's there or it's not, right? Ball's moving then.
That makes
Maybe if
sense.
I'm lucky, like I might have like an attack from like behind the goal. I get up to like goal line extended. I might like do something there and then
Roll
re-attack.
back into the dodge, yeah.
Yeah, like so you might get two, right? And
Okay.
so it really bugs me like watching videos and stuff like that where you've got these guys who are doing like 10 different things like in an activity like that never happens. And it never happens isolated in that format.
Mhm.
It's all reading the game and so forth. And you can say it's technical, but it's probably not because there's no technical training happening in the
Yeah.
video whatsoever. Um, but yeah, why do all these things if you don't need to? Like, let's be good at some of the basic simples, do them exceptionally well, create your angles, decelerate exceptionally well. because again, that can gain separation too, especially on those fakes. If you have good quality fakes with great deceleration, put yourself in a good body angle to reaccelerate very well. Now it comes to what we do here in the weight room, like how strong are you, how powerful are you
Yeah,
to now utilize that force production and rate of force production ability to get out of that decel position to reaccelerate.
well, that makes sense.
Um,
So then I guess going to that, like the big thing for if I'm a high school athlete trying to figure out how I can set myself up for college would be how do I kind of train that decel? Is it simply as simple as like, hey, we're lifting APRE style weights in a weight room? Like how do you guys kind of go about developing that for your freshmen in the off season?
I would say if you can hammer the basics in the weight room in terms of the squat, so you hit the squat, hinge, lunge, press, pull, like that's the most you need in the weight room. But then the most you can do outside the weight room is just playing with other people because it's such a reactive sport. It's such a small space sport for field, such a small space sport played on a big field. Like if you think the times you're actually hitting top speed, you might be in transition. Maybe you have a fast break. Your DMAD just got to strip the ball, got a ground ball. You have a fast break, 4-on-3 opportunity with the attack and the close D. You're probably hitting top speed running down, but maybe for 2 seconds. So in terms of what's actually important, it's the ability to react through your true agility, to decelerate, accelerate, stop and go as quick as you can. That's what needs to be trained the most in terms of how to reach that high level of Salisbury Division 3, Division 1 level, and then just hammering the basics of the weight room, getting as strong and as powerful as possible with the weights. And then, like I said, playing as much as you can. Just play, play, play. Yes, hitting the wall is important. Stick skills are important. You can do as many like dodge and shoots as you want just by yourself. But in terms of being able to react to a defender, to beat him with your first move and then beat him with your second move if you don't beat him with your first move, like that's the most important thing for the game. And then as a defender, being able to react quickly and stopping their first move and then also stopping their second move if they make one before they pass it. That's the most important aspect of the game. So hammering the weights, getting as strong and as fast as possible, and then just improving your ability to react to another individual and play the game.
So
Yeah, I would follow that up. I think, those are the critical pieces, right? Like you have to have those underlying elements before you can start getting more advanced in your concepts, right? Where
mhm.
everybody wants to know like exactly what is the elite of the elite doing, and oh, I got to go do that stuff, right? But if you have like don't have the underlying strength, the underlying abilities, anything advanced is not going to really come. And so, once you have those capacities, right? I mean, in a lift session in here, we may have like four different groups. We may be back squatting as like our main lift today.
Sure.
We got four different groups kind of doing something slightly different based off of their current abilities. Where you have guys who are weak, right? I mean, they're 1.5 times their body weight on back squat, right? They're not strong enough on that lower half right now. Like they're doing something different than maybe like some of our upperclassmen who are over 2 times their body weight on back squat, right? And those guys may even have like a 30, 32-inch vert. Those guys are doing a lot of high velocity, different types of organization with those lift. Then we've got other guys who are, maybe doing some eccentric load, right? Doing
Yeah.
some triphasic models, spending a lot of time eccentrically, And so what I see typically is most of our guys coming in here are not strong enough. They're great skilled players. They're not strong,
Yeah.
and not powerful. And so we usually, for our younger players, we're usually implementing like a triphasic model where we're spending time eccentrically, being able to then isometrically work from there and then, working some concentrics coming out of that. I think that, and then in our plyometric program, learning how to land bilaterally, progressing to unilateral lands, and then looking at ground contact time. So when we are moving into depth jumps and progressing our lands to our jumping patterns, right, really focused heavily on what's our ground contact time look like, right? So again, we use the plyo mat here where we actually have it out. And again, at one of your sets on your depth jumps, you got to get onto the plyo mat so you can see your ground contact. Are you under that 2.25 meter millisecond range,
Mhm.
to make sure that we're hitting right the right capacity. We're not training. It's not a force component. We want rate of force focus there. So from the nuts and bolts of it, things like I think those are some of the big ones in terms of how can we optimize our accelerations or our decelerations is you've got to learn how to absorb force. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I see from players that come in here is their ability to handle high load of force, right? So we may start on 24-inch boxes, but as our lands, but we're moving those 24s to 48s. So high lands, or we're 24 with load, right? Being able to learn how to absorb force. And you can then progress that into a single leg, right? Obviously, we're not going to go as high or as heavy,
Mhm.
but learning how to single leg that. And then again, there's so many variations of things that you can do off of that from, lateral explosions to drop weight, things like that, sprints to work off of that if you wanted to. But for our situation, we just don't have the capacity, size, coaching staff to really dive into more of some of those technical elements that would come after that. But simple depth jumps, um, eccentric loading, I think are critical pieces.
No, I think there's a lot to be said with what you said too, and I think that's one of the big things that what I've noticed with high school athletes is they seem to miss is like the bare bone, like not bare bones, but the basics of we need to focus on building strength because, like you said, if you have athletes who have gone through a 4-year program at whatever high school they're at, and they come to you and to your terms, they're still not strong enough. What have they been doing in high school those last 4 years to get themselves ready for you? Because in my head, as a high school strength coach, what can I do to best hand them off to you so that you can just, put on the spinners, the bells, the whistles, however you want to kind of phrase it from there to make sure they can perform. Because that's the big thing that I noticed too is like they go to private facilities, they go to private trainers, and they're doing VBT, but they don't go below 1 meter a second on their VBT. And it's like, all right, well, we're not really building strength here at this point. Um, but no, I think that's great because I think the high school athlete really does need to hammer down on those basics and kind of build it out from there. And then to your credit too, you're saying you can't get as nitty gritty as you'd like, but you guys have awesome athletes that roll through there all the time. Like Cross Ferrero, did he just sign like another extension with somebody? And he's a
Resign, yeah.
Salisbury guy. Granted, he played 1 year at Maryland, but like he's built and bred for Salisbury.
No, he was a
Um,
full
Who's
Salisbury
Salisbury?
guy.
You get who's at Maryland right now?
He just finished, just graduated. Jack
Dowd,
Dowd.
Jack Dowd. He
oh,
was
that's
at
who it was.
Maryland last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
got some other freaks like Charlie White. He's
Charlie
maybe
White.
not
Yeah.
as
Yeah,
athletic as
yeah.
Cross, but he's a strong dude.
He
You guys
He's
is.
do
a
He
really well
freak.
with
is.
him too.
Yeah. And that's,
Great.
I mean, a lot of it too is like work ethic, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like how bad do you want to be good? I think, Coach Berkman here has done a phenomenal job, like with the culture and finding those guys who, why they've been, you look at sustained success. He's been here for nearly 40 years now, and has, the amount of All-Americans or national titles that he's worked with. Like it's not just a one and done type of thing. And so, developing that piece, I think is an important part too. Is guys, you gotta love this stuff, right? The process, right? Again, we have it right here up above us. Um, you gotta trust it. You gotta believe in it. Um, and I think he does a phenomenal job of getting guys who one already do that and
Yeah.
then continue to build that. And I think the most successful teams have that more than they have skill. Um, I'd say at this level, right? At this level, I mean, obviously they're skilled players, right?
Yeah.
But that is, I think, the difference maker. Like when I see teams, because having the opportunity to work with men's and women's lacrosse, baseball, softball here is at an elite level. Um, what runs through all of them,
Yeah.
right? Like they work their absolute butts off. Not just in here, right? It's baseball, softball is the extra cage work that the ground balls, right? And you see guys out on the wall, you see guys constantly getting out shooting. Um, it's more than that, right? Than just the weight room or it's everything. And finding those people, those are the ones who are going to be the most successful moving. Again, you work with those kids, they want to go to college. Like what be one thing that I could, man, you got to love this thing. You got to
Yeah.
love it so much that, it becomes part of your everyday. I mean, you talk Paul Rabel. Yeah, you talk about Paul Rabel. I mean, that, getting, what is he, 100 shots a day, whether it's raining or it's not. I mean, yeah, like there's a reason why he became who he was. Like he was probably a highly skilled player to begin with, and could have been a good, pro player, but not the best
Hmm.
without taking that. And then you take that into everything else, right? It comes into like the rest of your life. And, that model goes into the weight room, it goes into running, it goes into your nutrition, it goes into your recovery and your sleep. And all of a sudden, like now you've got this full player. And again, like being able to see these guys at the elite level now, like that's what they do.
Yeah.
Like, like again, working with, your TJ Malone, your Matt Campbell's, Connor Schellenberger's, like this is what they do every day. And it's stuff that nobody's ever going to see. Um, right. And so guys don't know, like the youth don't really know. They just know what they see. And there isn't a lot of that right now in the game. But they absolutely work. And it's pretty fun to watch those guys. And it's neat for us here to be able to bring some of that stuff back and say, hey man, this is like right now, like the number 2 ranked player in the world. Um, Connor Schellenberger, and like this is his work ethic. I mean, the guy just grinds.
That's the thing too that I'm always trying to figure out. Is that an instilled property, or is that something that they like? Is that something that they naturally have, those athletes, that I'm going to put in this work, I'm going to do this, or is that like an acquired trait that they kind of develop over time? Because I feel like I've seen some athletes that they learn the process over time, and you got some athletes like they're just born and bred, and like this is just what I do. Like what's your kind of thought on that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's some of it is like the environment. I mean, I say all of it, well, not all of it, but majority of the environment you grew up in,
I
Mhm.
mean,
right?
we could shout out Ron Sires. He's an assistant here, but he's also a professor in, was it leadership?
Yeah.
Professor in
Playing
leadership
leadership.
here. And he always talks about how nobody's born with it. Like coaches always say he's a born leader. She's a born leader. But it's acquired through hard work, discipline, and then grit. Shout out Angela Duckworth. I'm reading this book right now because Nine told me about it in one of his presentations that I saw the other day. And he or she just talks about how grit is the most common trait among those that are successful in whatever they do, whether it's sport, life, your career, like the ability to like the power and passion of perseverance is that like that's what grit is, and those that have that um are the most successful in whatever they're doing, whatever they're gritty about, and that's the word that they use here. That's the word that they live by here at Salisbury Lacrosse, men's lacrosse. That's what Berkman uh stresses them all the time, and it shows. It shows the amount of national championships they have, the amount of All-Americans they have, and the amount of wins they have.
Love
Yeah.
that. Love
But
that.
I mean, yeah, it's developable. Again, finding those guys, like to what you said though, some guys just it won't click for them,
Mhm.
right? And that's the hard part, right? So how, as we as coaches show them, giving stories, things along that line. I always give like our players like my story as a player. I was a baseball player. I played at Towson. My first 3 years I played 7 innings total, right? Which is again obviously not a lot when you play 52 games and generally 9 inning games. I played 7 innings, not 7 games, 7 innings. And but like I ended up, getting a start my fourth year there. I took a no-hitter to the 8th inning, and the very next game I got was against UNC Chapel Hill, and I threw a complete game shutout. It was the first time in 132 games that they were shut out, and all of a sudden I was now the number 4 starter, right? But I was a guy that had that grit, right? Somebody that was going to work, push, because I loved being there more than I did not being there, just
Gotcha.
on the baseball field, right? I loved that more, um, and again, I don't know if it was ever something like my dad instilled in me or the environment that I was in. Like we weren't in an environment that we could just pick up and leave, right? Meaning
Yeah.
like, oh, this club team here, I'm not playing. I can go to this club team. Back then that didn't, excuse me,
Yeah.
that didn't exist. And so, like, if you wanted to play, like, you had to work. Um, and then I think learning how to fail. I mean, my high school team was awful. We failed a lot, right? But like, did that like drive you then? Absolutely, right? So like, did it like make me mad, right? When there was one game I remember we lost. It was 36-0 in baseball. Like, yeah,
Jeez.
it's so bad. Um, but then to come back and get a start against them later on that season, and we lose on a 7-6 on a last inning walk off, not a like a walk off single,
Mhm.
right? Against same team where we just got our butts smashed. To then a game where they ended up getting that upper hand 7-6 in the last inning. That's a big win, right?
For sure.
And so like again, how can we use like these stories to help develop our athletes? And again, all I can say that our focus here is like how do you influence them? How do you inspire them? We know everybody knows what should be done,
Mhm.
right? It's then they've got to then take it from there to want to be great. But I think like Coach Berkman does a good job pushing that, the alumni, the storied history of the program. Same thing on the women's side too, and it's not just that I can't put like my finger on one thing. Like, right,
Mhm.
it's a bunch of a lot of things that need to come together. Guys that are open minded, willing to do it. And I think the other thing at this level that we see
Yeah,
here is like if you're not going to do that, you're probably not going to be here very long, or you're not going to ever play.
Mhm.
And so
gotcha.
if that's what you want, I guess, like to be a bench guy for 4 years, okay, so be it, I guess, right?
Mhm.
Um, Personally, like, and I say the same thing is like, I never wanted to be a guy who said, what if? Like, what if I would have just worked a little bit harder? I never wanted to look back and say that. And, giving that concept to freshmen, like, yeah, man, hey, man, you got the next 4 years here to do some great things. Obviously, the coaching staff believes you can play here, or you wouldn't be here.
True.
Now it's okay. What's at this point now? Like, how bad do you want to be good? And then what are you willing to do or not do? Um, to put yourself in that position to look back and say, man, I gave everything I had, right? And I can tell you at the end of the day, like it's going to be so much more rewarding than like going out on the town with your buddies,
Oh, for
uh,
sure.
every week or just being like the party person versus the person who trains and works and pushes in your lifetime, because that's again the next career job. It's going to require you to do the same thing, to push, to work, to grind. And that's why, like, I think, you know, athletics teaches so much.
No, it does. And I think that's a great word too, is like, because you have that for college, you have that for high school, is like, don't leave any what ifs. Like, give your all every time you get it. Build that foundation because you don't want to have any kind of regrets when you get to your senior year, whether it's high school or college, to be like, I could have done this, but I was lackadaisical. I wasn't fully committed. I wasn't leave. No, I wasn't sneak leave. No, I couldn't just focus on the thing at hand. Let's get it done.
Because like you if you're someone that does that and doesn't work hard to the point where you're going to reach your full potential as a player, you will regret it.
Yeah.
Like you will look back and you'll say, what if? Like, what if I did work hard? I probably would have enjoyed the sport a little more. I probably would have had a better relationship with it on the last day that I played it. Like that's just how it's going to be. You will regret it if you don't work hard and don't
Mhm.
like put your nose down and get to work.
I think that thing was, I'm not sure if you experienced this, Colton, but like, especially during COVID when I was coaching college lacrosse, you got so many guys that were either seniors or just had their season cut short immediately. And they're like, there's so much I would have done differently in
Yeah,
February, in January, but I just didn't know. And it's like, yeah, you're not going to know. It's just going to end. It's going to come to like a conclusion eventually. But
yeah,
set yourself up now so you're not having those regrets later on and you're going to be a lot better
yeah.
for it.
Yeah, I mean, COVID definitely screwed a lot of things
Yeah.
up for a lot of people. So I was a senior in high school when COVID cut our season short, and we had like we were bound to have a good season. Obviously, we'll never know because of COVID,
Yeah.
but like we had 13 seniors, we had a good group of sophomores and juniors playing on the team. Like we were all hyped up, and then we found out during our second and last scrimmage before our first game, like it was like at halftime, like we found out the season was postponed because of COVID. So we were all like that second half of that scrimmage, we all went absolutely nuts. But like
Yeah.
we never had that but we never had that opportunity to like actually like prove ourselves. And a lot of people in that senior class went on to play some pretty good college lacrosse, and the juniors and sophomores are behind us as well. One of my teammates that was in that senior class, Noah Homayuni, he tragically